We are always better than yesterday, community. How are we doing? Hope that we're all well. Hope that this Monday morning is treating you well. If you're catching up on the replay, let me just say thank you for taking the time out to catch up with us. Tonight we have a mentor session with me and my very, very good friend from across the pond, Jonathan Darling, leadership coach, speaker, all things leadership. This man is all things love and leadership, shall we say. So that's the kind of topic that we're talking about tonight. The two things combined. Is there time and space for love in leadership? So a few invites just gone out to have as many of you wonderful people in this conversation with us, and then I shall get cracking. If you're there, drop me some blue love art emojis, give me a proper "we are always better than yesterday" greeting. Let me know that you are well. Hopefully the sound is good, and then we shall get cracking. There you go. Every time I go through the invite list of this community, I'm just so grateful, blessed, amazed at the amazing people that we have created, or that we've surrounded ourselves with, really. You really are incredible, inspiring people. I just want to say thank you once and always, just always grateful to have you on this journey with us. And let's do it. Let's have some fun, shall we? So we've got on loads of people. Dave's on, Lisa's on, Haley's on, lots of blue love heart emojis. Graham, Paddy, Anna, Danielle. Awesome. Alice, and the man himself, Jonathan Darling. So I'm all kitted out in my love hoodie. It's a bit backwards, but so tonight we're talking about does love have a place in leadership, and what better person to have on than our good friend all the way over from Tennessee. I don't know where he is tonight, but let's find out, shall we? Let's bring him on. And this is an interactive session, guys, so I'd love to know your views, challenge our thinking, share your experiences as we go along. Let's have a right old always better than yesterday knees up. Hello, my friend.
Connect here.
Yo, we good?
Hey, there we are. Yeah, we're good.
Amazing. How are you, my friend? Where are you?
I'm in Knoxville. I'm at home. So I'm in Tennessee. I'm home, and I'm hiding in my wife's closet because there's a lot of kids at my house being crazy and wild. And so I'm locked away where I can have some peace and quiet.
Amazing. Are you often in the closet?
I try not to be. I try to be as out and open as possible.
It's good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Happy Monday.
It's good to see you.
Amazing. What do you think of the talk?
I know Monday's as soon as I saw you write it, I was extremely excited about it. Especially because I know it's something that you and I are so aggressively passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And our views are so similar that I think you and I, even if nobody ever had any questions, I think you and I could talk about it forever.
Yeah.
But especially with a lot of things that I've been studying here lately, it's just a very exciting topic for me, and something that my heart is super
so we run
about.
the risk of being like this echo chamber where we're just going to bounce ideas off each other, and we're gonna love the sound of our own voices.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, if you're watching, I just encourage you to bring your comments in, challenge our thinking, or bring your own stories, bring your own conversation to this, just so it's not Ryan and John just talking about all this stuff passionately and it's going to waste. So yeah, that's your kind of challenge tonight, guys. Please just do get involved in the comments. I will make sure that we're taking some time to. Sarah, hello. Sarah, how you doing? Good to see you, Paddy. Good to see you, Laura. So and Kaylee's on. So yeah, we've got loads of people on tonight, and this is obviously an opportunity. It might be John and Ryan's face right here, but let me hear your voice. Let me hear it come through. So where should we start, my friend? Let's just tackle the big question. Does love have a place in leadership?
So you and I think very similarly on this, and my answer is very direct and it's very plain. there is no leadership without love. It's not. It's you. All right. Let me say it this way. There is no effective leadership without love. Because I believe at the center of leadership is the heart, and from the heart flows love. That's where love starts. That's where it begins. And I believe you can't be an effective leader unless you have love, and you love and truly care for others.
Yeah, I love that. Leadership isn't easy. Leadership, if done right, is going to be difficult. It's going to require blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice. And the best example I can think of that is being a parent. You know, being a parent is like being a leader. It is absolutely putting somebody else's needs before your own. And the reason we do what we do for our kids, get up at the middle of the night without complaining, or sometimes we'll complain, but is because of that love, and that you know, that love for something else, something bigger than you, somebody else. Imagine if we applied that, the same care and attention to the people in our home as we would in the people in our lives in general, in our teams, in our communities. And the reason I word it so playfully is is there a space for love in leadership? Is, man, I think we've lost our way a little bit in industry, and we talk about efficiency and effectiveness and the corporate machine. It's dehumanizing our workplaces. And I think now more than ever, we need to rehumanize work. We need to rehumanize our communities and connect and collaborate and have fun and enjoy each other's company. You know, because phrases like "do what you love," that they're almost seen as nice to have. So I don't know about your experience over there in the States, but you know, we work. I certainly am from an industry where, you know, it's very serious. You know, and don't get me wrong, there can be consequences, but we're losing track of people in the process.
Yeah, something I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I've not been really sure
Sure.
how to articulate it. And maybe you can help me. You know, we've got this idea of leadership development, and when you look at leadership development from inside the corporate context of what it typically is discussed, is this idea of processes and procedures of how to get your team or your organization to accomplish your goal, and what it's really doing is how to manage your people better. Leadership, and we've got that wrong. Leadership development, processes and procedures is leadership tactics. They're tools you use as a leader to help you accomplish a goal or to achieve a goal more efficiently. Leadership development is about developing the person, is about helping the person see their unlimited potential that's inside of them and drawing that out of them. I truly believe, and it's a lot of what I've been studying lately, that we were created with unlimited potential inside of us, and that over time we have been given limits. We have been told that we have limitations, and we have chosen to take those and believe it. Leadership development is about helping teach people how to draw out and call out the greatness in people's lives. And it's really easy to look at a goal and think, well, we want to, you know, like you were talking about, dehumanizing work. We see work as there's this goal and this objective that we have to achieve. The best way to achieve that is to call out the incredible greatness that people have to achieve it better. And the only way we do that is to love and care for people and believe that that's inside.
I just think we show up differently. When we, you know, when we love what we do, when we love the people we surround ourselves with, we just show up differently. And I guess I'm a man of practical. I like to think about strategies and solutions and an actual practical. Bill, hello, my friend. Hello, Jem. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining. I'm a very, very practical person. don't get me wrong, I can hypothesize and I can dream for days, but when it comes down to it, what's going to get the car moving? And let's talk a little bit about that then. Okay, well, I think we're sold on the fact that there is no, you will not reach the full potential of leadership without love in your soul. A love for what you do, love for your people you surround yourself with, and a love for the mission, a love for the purpose that you've got. Let's talk a little bit about kind of what it takes then. Okay, I might be sold. I'm a little bit cringeworthy. I'm a little bit kind of, oh, I get your point. But where do we start? How do we start? What does love in leadership look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like?
You know, it's such a great question. I think there comes to a point that we have to come to the realization, and I say this a lot, that we were all created with a similar purpose, and that similar purpose that we all share, it identifies and presents itself differently, but the purpose that we all share is that we were created to be in relationship. You look at cavemen, you look at language, everything about us has been created for us to be in relationship and community with each other.
So like another word for that might be
and I
connection.
think connection, right. We were all created for connection. And when we stop looking at, love doesn't point out the deficiencies that other people have. It calls out the potential that people have. And so when we stop focusing on the deficiencies of other people, and we start focusing on and believing in their unlimited potential, when we start communicating to them in a way where we are focusing on their unlimited potential, we begin to create that atmosphere. And I think it starts with our language, how we speak to people, how I think it was Anna who wrote up there, empathy. I think when we stop looking at the differences of people and trying to understand where people come from and what makes them who they are, I believe those are the things that really get the ball rolling into how we develop it and how we create.
We've got Paddy on, and Paddy's currently, I think he's serving in the armed forces, and he says that his dad also served as well. So we've got two generations. So thank you, my friend, and I appreciate that. And I think, he talks about that armed forces where everyone was that family-based ethos, everyone was included, loved, and very much lost their way with that. And I know this is a really bad example to share, but I've been going back over Band of Brothers recently, and I'm seeing the world from a different perspective, and because I watched it when I was a teenager, and watching it now, I think, oh my God, look, trying to have empathy for what it must have been like in those situations, and that must be a pure example of having to lead with love, to give your ultimate sacrifice, to give your life effectively to protect your comrades and your country. Like that's love. That is to do that requires something that I'm not sure us everyday people will be able to connect with, but that's the ultimate, and that is where leadership lies. And Paddy, I mean, he's inviting to challenge your thinking on the tactics of leadership. Should we be tactical in our approach, or perhaps just more understanding in who makes us good leaders, good followers? What do you think of that, mate?
So Paddy, that's a great question, and I'm going to answer it, but I want to follow you up first, Ryan. And back to Paddy's original point, when you look at the military, I think the military, and I'm a huge fan of Navy SEALs. But I think when you look at the individual teams of the military, they give us one of the best examples of love and leadership that we could ever have. Because I think one of the misconceptions that people get is that if you are a leader and you love your people, or you love people in general, that you have to like everyone.
Yep.
Love does not mean that you have to like or get along or want to hang out with someone outside of the context of whatever you're doing. And when you look at the military and specifically some of the teams, those guys have an understanding. They love each other from an understanding of they have they have empathy. They have an understanding of what each one has gone through to get where they're at. They have an understanding of their backgrounds, and their differences don't define them as people, but yet they give them strengths and qualities that help them be the best soldier that they can be. And then what they also do is they realize they might not like each other or have this want to be best friends, but that when shit hits the fan, those guys have each other's backs, and they're going to be willing to do everything they can to protect and serve that person next to them. And I think that's so huge. So what I would say to answer Patty's question is, don't get me wrong in saying that tactics in leadership are bad. I think we have to have a great understanding of processes and tactics and procedures of how to help develop and get the best out of our people. But I think you have to look back to where it comes from. Is it coming from only a spot of wanting to accomplish a goal, or is it coming from a spot of truly caring for that person and want to bring out the best in them and wanting to help lift them up to make them the best that they could be? So in doing so, and I think when you make that transition from being a manager to being a love leader or someone who leads with love, I think sometimes it's okay to have steps to help you learn how to do that or help you learn how to focus on that. So an example of that might be, Patty, you might use the tactic of, if you're going to be doing a one-on-one meeting with someone, instead of starting your one-on-one meeting focused on the objectives or the current results that person's getting in their activity, maybe you use a tactic of spending the first 15 to 20 minutes talking to that person about how they're doing, how their families are, what's going on in their personal life that you potentially can speak into or lift them up in. You know, and it's going to be hard at first, but I believe tactics can be used, but I think you have to be cognizant of where they're coming from and what the aim of those tactics are, if that makes sense. I don't know how you feel about that, Ryan, if you agree, disagree.
Yeah, good question. Leadership only ever is about people. Leadership's about people, and therefore would I follow you? But the leader has to create the right environment to protect their people, to create the right systems, procedures to win. So maybe the leader won't necessarily be the creator of those systems and processes and tactics, but they will certainly create the environment where they can be present and delivered and sustainable, whatever that might be. I don't want to confuse the two for me, because leadership is purely about people. Tell us a little bit about love. You talked about love, and I can't remember the words you used, but some might say it's a weakness. And I think you touched on it a little bit a minute ago around the opposite of that. Tell us a little bit more why it's not a weakness.
Loving and caring for others is never a weakness. We've allowed society for a long time to tell us that emotion, or showing emotion, especially as men, is something that is frowned upon, and that makes us look incapable of doing our jobs effectively and efficiently. The only true way to bring out the best in someone else is to love them through it, and is to love it out of them. It's one of those things that I get so frustrated when I hear even things like, oh, well, in business, you can't be the one who's overly kind because you'll just get taken advantage of. And here's the thing. If people are going to take advantage of you because you're kind, or if people are going to take advantage of you because you love them, that's their unfortunate issue. It's not yours. And the people who truly, not everybody's going to resonate at first, but everybody innately wants to be loved and cared for. And I think what happens is it's looked at as a weakness because for a lot of people, it's it's not a focus of
Sure.
sincerity. It's a focus of getting something done. It's so hard because the easy answer for me to tell you, Ryan,
Yeah.
is no, it's not a weakness. And people who say that aren't intelligent, but
Yeah.
that's,
I think emotionally intelligent, maybe. I think for me
right.
personally,
Yeah.
to love in leadership, it requires vulnerability, it requires courage, it requires someone to be completely filled up their own cup of, the ability to be comfortable with the emotions of themselves and the emotions of others. I think that to love in leadership is not about, you know, let me give an example of how I think I've loved and led you. You were going through a tough time and you were spouting off some bullshit in my inbox, and I called you out on it.
Yes, you
And that's
did.
because I love you dearly, and I need to remind you and bring you back to your true potential, like you just said a minute ago. And actually, if you think about, there are so many teams that go, so many leaders that avoid conflict. Conflict is necessary because actually there is so much dormant potential left on the table if you don't face to face it.
Mm,
And you were having a moment of self doubt, and I brought you face to face with that.
yep. Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, and you had talked about, is it, people could view it as a weakness. When you are a leader who leads with love, it doesn't mean that you don't hold
Sure,
people
it's
accountable.
the opposite.
It means the way that you hold people accountable might be a
Yes.
little bit different. But you're still going, like, when and this is around a lot of the stuff that I've been studying lately. When you see people and you choose to believe that they have unlimited potential inside of them, and that it's your job as a leader to bring that out of them, you should not accept anything less than their top unbelievable talent that they have to offer. We are to call, like, we need to create a culture where we're calling out the destiny in people when they don't even see it inside of themselves. And so when you're a leader like you did with me, I was limiting myself, and you called me out. You were like, no, stop saying that about that, because you are. This is who you are. A leader who leads with love is not afraid of telling someone when they're wrong. But instead of just pointing that out, what that leader is going to do is we're going to walk beside them, and we're going to help, even sometimes pick them up and carry them through
Yeah.
that challenge or that potential coming up short, and help them see that inside of them. And so it's a leader who loves is not going to accept anything less than greatness out of their people. And they're going to draw that out of them. And when they don't see it, they're going to tell their people, you're better than that. You have so much more inside of you to give. And this is my expectation of you because I see it in you. It's
Chris
just
says it's
different.
not conflict if your intention is love, and I guess conflict was the one word that I can use, but absolutely, and that's why I use the word when we do our accountability groups. I call it love tough. I think love comes first because the love enables you to show up in the right way. It's exactly what you just said, my friend. Around it's about the intention, how you show up, and then the tough comes. It's not like we avoid these tough conversations. We have them, but we have them with the right intention. Love this. If you avoid conflict, you avoid leadership. And there are so many teams that are eating themselves from the inside because they don't have the ability to have these constructive conversations with each other. And Graham says, as with parenting, there will be times when we make decisions out of love that the team will not like. Does a leader need to be loved or liked even? What's your view on that? What's your view on ego in leadership?
Um, if your leadership is being dictated by your ego, it's going to be a tough road for you. Because you should always, for me, one of the things that I've always been very cognizant of with myself is that I'm not always the smartest person in the room, and that there are a lot of people who are way more talented than me, or have different talents than I do, that that might make them a little bit better than me in certain situations. And I've had a leader before, Ryan, that I worked really hard, and he would always tell me, I know that you think you could be really good at my job, but you just need to realize you're not in my role, and you need to stop pretending that you're the one leading this team. My and he did not, like, his ego was 100% at the head of how he led me and how he led our team. He wanted everyone to be just like him. He didn't like that I did things differently and I was successful, and he would even tell me, you need to be more like me in XYZ, and you need to be more like me in XYZ. And I think when our ego gets in front of us and it's all about us, we can't love people, because when you love people,
100%.
it's not about me.
That's something I've had to learn, because I think with leadership, we lead because of who we are, not where we are. And I think authentic leaders will bring them whole selves, and that means flaws and all. And in the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years, through my own leadership journey, I'm happy to share this, is that one of my flaws has just been the absolute need for validation, you know, and that has meant that I've fallen vulnerable to, does the need to be loved? You know, I've always sought that needing to be accepted, that needing to be loved in all areas of my life, you know, and why would I be kidding myself if I didn't see that show up in my leadership? That's ego, you know, pure ego. And not because I craved it, not because I went out and sought it, I felt vulnerable when I didn't get it. So that's a slightly different way of the ego. I wasn't an egocentric leader. I was kind of reactive. I felt less worthy if I didn't feel that validation. And the one thing that's really helped me push through is just show up, have fun, do your best, and serve. You know, the reason I'm so passionate about servant leadership is, like you just said, being a leader, it's not about you. It really isn't about you. It's about what you can inspire in others, was what you can do to make a difference to all those around you. And that's why I kind of lead with love. Because I needed it myself, but now I need it for other people.
Yeah, you know, my wife, and I've shared this before. You know, I'm trying to write a book, and some days it's I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. Thank you. I'm writing a book, and when I was getting started, I was really struggling with wanting to make this huge, massive impact and wanting to change the world with my book, and could barely even write a paragraph without wanting to throw it away. And my wife looked at me and she said, why are you so worried about trying to write a bestseller that everybody's going to love? If you write this book and it changes one person's life, is it worth it? And if it is, then you need to write it for that one person. And I think for me, that was where, like, my ego of wanting to be a good writer and wanting to write something that you know, like, oh, look at me, look at what John wrote, look at this New York Times bestseller, when who cares? My personal success should not dictate whether or not I show up to help one person get better. And you know, we talk about this, you know, the definition of inspiration, or the definition of inspire, is to change one person's life, to create a positive feeling in someone's life, not everybody's life, not a totality of a group of population, someone's life. And if that was all we ever did, was inspire one person to be the greatness and to achieve what they have down deep inside of them, is our life inspirational? And I would say yes, it is. And I would say that's where, for me having to learn my ego, it's not about my accomplishment, but if I'm able to help someone accomplish.
So have you been on the end of a leader that leads with love? And what does that feel like to be led by someone like that?
You know, I've had some really interesting journeys and people in leadership. I would say the greatest example I've had was a boss that I had before
Yeah.
my role now, still with the same company, but in a previous role I had with this company. And um, he personified to me, he really kind of started creating this thought that I had around leading with love and what it
Mm-hmm.
meant to be a leader. I remember before I even took the role to change companies, my wife's father had just passed away, and I wasn't interested in taking the role whatsoever. And he said, well, just meet with me anyway, because it's always good to at least have a contact in our industry. And so we met, and I liked him right away. We connected right away, and I decided to take the job. Now they were paying me a massive amount more money than what I was currently making, um, and like life changing money. The decision, I could not make the decision. Um, but when I told my company that I was leaving, they cut me off that day, and I wasn't scheduled to start work for another 30 days. Right, I hadn't even taken a drug test yet, and so I called my new boss and I said, hey, I turned in my 30-day notice. They made me turn in my car. I don't even have a vehicle. My family doesn't have insurance. I'm not going to get a paycheck for 30 days. I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. And he said, I'll call you
Mm-hmm.
back. 10 minutes later, he calls me back and he says, tomorrow morning, you're going and taking your drug screening at this place here. Here's my credit card number. Go rent a car. Don't worry about anything. And we're going to pay for you to have insurance for the next 90 days until your insurance starts with our company. Oh, and by the way, as of Monday, you'll be on our payroll. And I said, well, Doug, I'm not starting, like, my first day of work isn't for 30 days. He goes, it doesn't matter, John. You're with us now. You're a part of our family, and we're going to take care of you. And he, and in everything he did, when he would come into town, because he lived remotely, I lived remotely, when he would come into town, every single time he would come into town, he would say, hey, I know we're going to dinner tonight. Is your wife okay? Do her and the girls want to come to dinner? When we would, and he was just in town, like we just had dinner together 2 weeks ago, just because he happened to be in town, and he's not even my boss anymore. And we're sitting at dinner, and he's like, how's your wife? How are the girls? How are they doing? I bet you Bryn's getting really big right now. Is she out of school? Oh, Daring, like, and this blows my mind. He goes, Daring loves fish and chips, right? Do we need to buy her an order of fish and chips? This is her favorite place to get it from, right? And I was like, yeah, Doug, how do you remember that? And he's like, well, do we need to get her some? Do the girls need dessert? And he would do that every time he would come in. And when he calls me, he always makes sure, how's your lovely wife? How's she doing? Is the travel too much for her? And it opened, and everybody in the company's like that. And it opened my eyes to, this man truly cares about me. He cares about my family. And more than me being an employee of his, he cares about me being a good husband and a good father and making sure that I'm spending that time with my family.
Leadership transcends the workplace.
Oh my gosh, man. And it changed from the leadership that I came from to that.
Yeah.
It drastically changed my view on the type of man I wanted to be.
The reason I care so much about leadership is because I've been on the end of it, where I've come home and I've probably not been the person that my family needs. And actually, it starts with yourself and lead yourself. But that's what we have the power to do to each other. You know, make a difference so that when you go home, you're the person that those people need more than anything. And man, what you've just said as well, and the story that you shared on Instagram, on LinkedIn recently around the female that took her child to work, another story of compassionate leadership.
Yeah, it's, you know, look, I get it. We are all in business. And especially when we're talking about leadership in a corporate context, right? Because you and I both know, I talk a lot about that leadership has nothing to do with the title, position, or role, and it really has nothing to do with an organization or a company. We can lead people every single day in every interaction that we're in by choosing to lift them up and love them, right? But when you put leadership in a corporate context and you take that understanding that you can love and lift people up no matter what they're doing, and you put it into the role of a company. I get that we have objectives and we have bottom lines and we have all of those things. How you treat your people and how you care about your people will be the determining factor of whether or not your company or your team is successful. And when you, like that guy, the mom was having a hard day, didn't have her daycare, all this stuff, and her leader is walking her child, choosing to be there in that moment to say, hey, I've got you. I know things are tough at home, but I got you. You're with us now. Like we're your family too. I've got you. That just takes it to a whole new, like it gives me goosebumps, man. It just takes it to a whole new level, and people don't realize how little things like that doesn't take a lot of effort. That doesn't take genius. That takes heart. And
so let's spend the next 5-10 minutes just talking about some of the practical ways which leaders can start developing love in their leadership, and then let's call it a night. So yeah, what's helped you? What's helped you encompass love within your leadership? Where do we start?
I think it starts by making a choice. That you either you choose to care about people. I read this the other day. A person's behavior does not dictate their potential. And it doesn't matter how someone acts or what someone's doing. That does not change the potential that they have inside of them. And so I think it becomes, I think you start by making a choice that you're going to start seeing people for the potential that they have inside of them and not the behavior that they're currently presenting. And I think when you do that and you make a choice to do that with every single person, like, you know, you and I talk and you know my faith. And we've been reading, you and I both read Bob Goff's book, Everybody Always. And he talks about, you know, love your neighbor and love your enemies. I think when we start making the decision to stop looking at people's behavior and start looking at their potential, and doing that even with people that we might not like very much, and realizing that that's a choice that we can make every single day, I think that's where it starts.
Yeah. I think sometimes practically as well, we can't give what we've not got. And if that phrase in leadership and love leadership means that we're not passionate, that we just don't love what we do, doesn't mean to say you can't be a leader. It just means to say you might want to take the time to reflect on where you're leading. You know, because you might be in a job that you're not passionate about. You might be struggling. And I believe that everyone has a chance to be a rock star somewhere. And actually, if you're thinking about, well, I don't really love what I'm doing, now might be the time to think about that. Because
so can I challenge you real quick on that? So would you say though that a person who might not be passionate or love what they do can't love their people and lead them anyway?
Yes, but I think some of the true requirement of leadership is to get those people from A to B. And you can sit there and you can love them where they are, but how are you going to get them to where they need to be? And I think that that's at the point where you need to have this sense of loving the mission, loving the sense of where you're going, because leadership is more than looking after people. It's about giving them a mission to believe in. It's about giving them an environment. It's about giving them a vision of where we're headed so that we can collectively go together. Because leadership is about followership. If I can inspire that in you to follow me because you trust me, you buy into me, or whatever that might be, then where are we going?
And I think that, and that's such a good answer, because I what rang with me in that is, oh, Patty, your people will know full well that you don't love what you do. I think Patty said it without saying the word that I'm thinking of, is not only your belief, but your sincerity, right? If you're not sincere about truly loving what you're doing or loving the mission, can you really instill that or inspire others to love and care about the mission? You know, and because people know, like, Lou Sal says, when true sincerity is built within, it is felt from one heart to another. So if you're not truly sincere about your mission, you can talk about it like you are, but people will know it. People
So
will feel it.
back up a notch. Let's
That's a
raise
good
this a
point.
notch. What if you have a fellow leader who has no love, and you have to try and be that leader without affecting a working relationship with a colleague? I have a view. What's your view?
That's a great leadership statement. So I think, Patty, I'm trying to put this in the best way possible. You should always be the mirror of what you're hoping for other people to see. So you might have a leader, who has no love, but again, being that leader, and loving others is not about that person's current behavior. It's about that person's potential, because that other leader has a potential to love. Maybe he just hasn't been given the best example of how to do that yet. And I think when it comes from the heart, you're not going to, relationships are always going to last when you step out doing something a little bit different than what people are used to. And when you start leading with love, it's going to be difficult, and people are going to give you pushback, and they're not going to believe it. And that's where you have to persevere through that challenge to show them that leading with love is the best way to do it. And I think ultimately you have to be the example for that leader so they can learn how to be the most effective they can be. What's your thoughts, Ryan?
Much similar. But the first and foremost is you first have to just show up as yourself. Show up in your own values. Don't be influenced by what others are or are not doing, because there's an integrity there that says, I'm just going to do what I believe is right in my heart, what I believe, what I'm willing to go home knowing I have or have not done. There's something that says to me about, can I go home knowing that I've done what I know that I'm A, capable of, and B, what's important to who I am. And then secondly, the worst we can try and do is try and change other people. Because I've tried and I've failed, and I've tried and I've failed, and I've got frustrated, and then I've thought that's about me. Do you know what? The best way in my experience, the best thing I've done in the last 2 years is just get my head down and lead by my own example. It's not about anybody else, because there are times where I've led my way and other people haven't, and I'm not getting recognized for it, and I'm going, guys, look at me, look at all the great things I'm doing, look after my people. But sometimes people just have a different value set. They don't see what you're doing, they don't value what you're doing, apart from the people that you lead. And that's the most important, because we always talk about the executives up, and actually there's always this kind of monkeys in a tree syndrome where the executives see the monkeys looking up, whereas all the people see the arses, and that's the reality. Don't assume that never happens, because it does. Everyone around knows what's going on. Show up as your best. Show up with the leader, with the values. Do it because you care, not because you're trying to be something that someone isn't.
You can only be you can only be yourself, and being you is way better than trying to be anybody else. And one of the things that I love that you said, like, you show up every day. I think one of we were talking about practical steps of how to develop this, and Ryan, I'm sure you do, is decide, you talk about having your why. And I say, you not only have to have your why, but I think that why then becomes your personal mission statement, and your personal ethos, and your personal non-negotiables of the type of person you're going to be. And some people call them morals or values, right? And my morals and values are my non-negotiables of the type of person I'm going to be, and that's who I'm going to be regardless of the situation or anybody else. And I think when you have that personal mission statement and you understand what your non-negotiable personal values are, it's not going to matter what anybody else is doing. You're going to show up and you're going to live in that to be the best you can be.
In spirit of what Paddy's saying about take it up a notch, it's easy to love people that are nice. It's easy to love a mission that is nice to do. The more gritty side of me says, you try showing up, loving what you do, when all you want to do is just shy away, hide away from it, where you feel like the world's against you. You try and love everybody. Not everybody's easy to love, you know. And actually, the challenge I've had in the last couple of years is show up, because I have the risk in loving the superstars, the great people within my team, and those that don't quite share my value set. Does that mean they get a lesser version of my leadership? Do I have favorites? So this is where I've had to kind of check myself, because actually you have to show up with that ability to find the best in those. And this is where I talk about everyone has the opportunity to be a rock star somewhere. Just because I don't see their skill set and strengths within what I need them to do right now, it doesn't mean to say that they couldn't be great somewhere else. So my ability to love them is to say, this isn't your place. You need to find somewhere where you're going to exceed and you're going to excel, because this isn't right here, right now. I don't feel like what you have is adding value to what we do. Tough as that might sound, I'm doing you a favor, because your skill set is going to be better suited somewhere else. And it's actually going to pain both of us if we don't have this conversation right now, because in 6 months' time, you're going to be sat there miserable at your job. I'm going to be sat here thinking we've got some challenges to overcome. The thing I've found in the last 2 years is to show up with my same loving leadership for those that are just not very easy to love.
Well, it's, you know, I was doing my talk at Morehead State earlier this year, and I said, you know, it's really easy to love people who love us. It's really hard to love people who suck sometimes. And I said, but we should not choose who we love based on whether or not someone's had a bad day or not. And, you know, and Patty, what I would say is, you know, the guy who you say has no love, we don't ever sometimes really know the challenges that people are facing outside of the role that they're playing in the context that we know them in. And because we all have different roles, right? We have father, we have business person, we have, you know, husband, we have all these different roles. And when that person shows up for the role of leader in their job, Patty, if that's what you're talking about, do we really know what's going on in his life outside of that? And he might be really struggling through some stuff. And you're right, Ryan. I think we have to be very cognizant of helping people if they're not in the right position, helping them find that right position. But I think we also have to be very cognizant of realizing that we're all wearing different hats, and sometimes the hats that people are wearing outside of the one that we see are suffocating them. And and how can we lift them up through that?
I once had a challenging colleague, and a practical example of how can you lead with love for those that even are difficult to love is to get to know them beyond, get to know the person, connect with the person, the human being. And I remember having a one-to-one conversation with this person, just, you know, why do you do what you do? Why do you come to work? Why do you show up and do this job? And the response took less than a second to come back at me, and it blew me away.
All right, let me see. Let me start one. Let me see if I can get Ryan on here. And get this thing started back up here. Well, hey Ryan, here we go. We'll see if I can add it. Can't bring Ryan on camera. Yes, you can.
Yeah. Honestly,
so we switched spots on the camera, but oh well.
Mate, I was just about to get into a great bit of my story and a story as well.
Dude, you were like, you had me right at you're like, oh, I asked him and it came out in a second, and then you froze, and I was like, no.
Yeah. So let me just build the suspense again. So, you know, there there was someone on my team that was not always as easy to love, and actually there was, you know, I spent some time in a one-to-one to really get to know this person, and I asked, why do you do what you do? Why do you come to work? You've been here 20 odd years. You know, why do you keep showing up? What do you love to do? And within 1 second, the response I said blew me away, and the response was, everything I do is to be a role model to my son, to show that if I can do it, he can do it. You know, and I just thought, I want you to win now.
Yeah.
I want you to win. I'm vested in you. You know, in that sense of understanding now about that person and what's important to them, and how they then show up, and the person that they bring to work. It's the person I'm leading isn't just that person sat in front of me. The person I'm leading is the person that then goes home to be the role model to the son. And over the year, I worked with that person, and that person got promoted, beyond where they believed they could get themselves. You know, and that's the power. I get emotional thinking about it, because I helped that person be that person she wanted to be for her son. Now that tells me everything I need to know about why leadership is only ever about people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So, yeah, thanks for helping me share that story, because, you know, I've lost my ability to speak now, but leadership's only ever about people. Let's not confuse the matter with anything else. And it starts with, like you said, the intent to show up, to care for the people around you. It takes a moment to say, can I get you a drink? Are you okay? Can I help you?
Yep. You know, I've said this, and I posted about it, because I even thought about it a little bit, because I was doing it a little bit. You know, I was talking a little bit for a while about, you know, Random Acts of Kindness Thursday and different things, and when I really started thinking about it a little bit, really started thinking about like my mission and my purpose and what I've been trying to communicate. Loving and caring for people in kindness is unfortunately something we've relegated to a random act instead of just a way of life.
Yeah.
And you're right, it doesn't take a lot to give somebody a hand up.
Yeah.
It just takes a moment of, you know, Benjamin Mead, there's a movie called We Built a Zoo. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's Matt Damon. It's about a guy who chose to him and his wife had just died. Him and his family were going through a pretty hard time, and they decided to move out of the city, and they bought a zoo out in the country with a house, and they chose to take over this zoo and like make it, you know, something. And his son liked this girl, and his son was asking him for a piece of advice, but said he didn't feel like he could talk to this girl that he liked. And he said, well, how did you decide to talk to mom? And he said, you know, I saw your mom sitting in a window of a cafe. He was like, and I thought she was beautiful. He was like, and I wanted to go talk to her. And he said, and every part of me wanted to run away. He said, but sometimes life takes 20 seconds, just 20 seconds of immense courage to cast everything else aside and to do what most scares. I'm adding to the quote, but to do what scares you most. 20 seconds of courage.
Yeah.
And you never know how your life or someone else's life will change.
Mm.
And that's all it takes. It just takes leading with love can be scary sometimes, because it can, especially when you're not used to it.
Yep.
It can throw you into unusual situations. It can throw you into scary situations. It can make you reach out to people when they're in their worst moment.
Yeah.
And you're like, do I really want to get involved in that?
Yeah.
But all it takes is just 20 seconds of just immense courage.
Yep.
And you never know how that's going to change your life or someone else's life. And man, Brene Brown talks about it. It's just choosing in that moment to be vulnerable and to give in and to just make that choice, man.
Just reflecting back on it now, like I remember my very early days, my very junior side of leadership, and I didn't really know what it was. I felt what it was before I knew what it was. And one of my colleagues went sick, man. He was really poorly, and I went and saw him in hospital, and he was very, very sick, you know, grey. And I remember over the coming weeks of having phone calls with his mum, and she phoned me and she would say she would be worried about him, and I just think, this is far beyond my skill set, this is far beyond my job, this is far beyond anything, but everything within me kept taking those calls, you know. And you know, every time I went back to work, they were like, that's wrong, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be doing that. But something within me just said, man, I can just help. You know, the perspective I had with just, her son's in hospital and he don't look great right now, the least I can do is take a phone call. You know, we can all take the call.
We can. It doesn't matter. Listening, truly listening to hear, doesn't take skill or talent.
Sure.
It takes a willingness to answer the phone.
Take the call. And I think on that bombshell, our good friend Christine Saunders is waiting for us to join her teleconference.
I think she is too.
So please just do me the honour and the privilege of leaving a final thought on love in leadership from Jonathan Darling.
Oh man, just one key, huh? If you don't, and this is, I just believe this is true. If you don't choose to love the people that you lead, they'll choose to follow someone else.
I'm not sure I can follow that.
I'm sure you can. I've been like, it's so funny. I've like, it's so fun talking to you because I fanboy out so hard all the time when you're talking, and just soak up so much intelligence from you, man. It's you've got so much knowledge.
And I'll say this is a product of loving what I do, because I do what's necessary, and I surround myself with awesome, inspiring people like yourself, and the majority of people that join this wonderful community. This community is a pure example of loving and leadership, because I do it because I believe in it. I do it because I believe in the people, and I show up every day, sometimes even when I don't want to. So that for me is the product of love, you know. And I don't care if people are uncomfortable with the term love and emotion, because what it really means is just, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. These are who I'm supposed to be surrounding myself with. You know before you know. You feel it before you think it. And if you're unhappy, great, because there's an opportunity to find somewhere where you'll be happier. If you're unhappy with your job, great, because there's an opportunity to find something more fulfilling to you. If you're unhappy with yourself, great, because you're alive and you've got the opportunity to do something about it. If you're in this community and you're feeling unloved, great, because there are some amazing people that are going to recenter you with yourself and who you are and what you're great at, that you're going to feel it within moments of asking for it. So yeah, if you've been inspired by anything that Jonathan and I have said tonight, please just connect with us, inbox us. It's always open, and we'll take you on that journey with us, because like you say, to be the best leader you possibly can be, not for yourself, but for others. You got to love yourself. You got to love what you do, and you got to love who you're doing it with. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. Always a pleasure. Thank you to everyone that's joined.
Thank you guys.
Loads of people in the conversation, loads of comments. Graham, Paddy, Christine, Lisa, Haley, Anna. So many names to mention. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and those of you that have made it this far on replay on the second video, thank you so much. And much love, guys. Appreciate you all, and we'll speak again soon. I'll be back here next Monday with Craig McHugh, and we'll be talking about the event that we've recently had around Mind
Craig.
Yourself. Yeah, so we'll keep you fanboying a little bit longer, my friend. And
For sure.
Much love, guys. Christine, we're coming. We'll see you soon.
All right. See you, Ryan.